Wade in the water. I'm joined by Wade Smith, former Texans offensive lineman, to discuss how the 2025 season has prepared the Houston Texans for this moment on Sunday.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation, from H-Town to your town. Today's episode and every episode of the Locked On Texans podcast is for Texan fans all around, from the south to the north to the east, all the way to the west. Today's show, weekend edition, is for you guys. It's going to be a fun show. I'm joined by former Houston Texans offensive lineman Wade Smith. We're going to dive into X factors for the Houston Texans, any of his concerns in this two-segment show today. And also, I think it's important to look at this will be one of Houston's toughest battles of the year, but they're no stranger to tough battles this year. They've been having tough battles since the last time they lost a game, and it's been a long time. So how the 2025 season has prepared Houston to go into Foxborough and leave out with a dub. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. And shout out to my everydayers from the Himalayas for making Locked On Texan podcast your first listen of the day, and making Locked On Network the number one sports podcast network in the nation. Without further ado, man, go ahead, introduce. Y'all know who he is. He's been on the squad shows every post game. Wade Smith, welcome to today's show. I'm blessed to have you in time of Texas, baby.
John, what's good? What's good? What's good? How you doing?
I'm doing great. We got a big game coming up Sunday afternoon, 2 o'clock. We may have two different views from a personal standpoint about how the game could unfold. This is why I named it in the war, because I know in spirit you're going to be with them boys. They going out there in Foxborough. There'll be sharks out there, sharks in the water. I know you're going to be with them in spirit. Well, I want to kick it off. My first question to you is just the 2025 season, in your opinion. The 10-game win start 0-3, 3-5. They fought through and had adversity every step of the way. But this team, this locker room, this franchise right now, don't matter outside noise. It only matters about what they can control. They execute, and they've been executing to get to a win. So, in your opinion, from top to bottom, how have you viewed this 2025 season and how it can play into Houston leaving out of Foxborough with a
dub? I would say that resilience is a big word when you talk about this team and them starting off 0-3. Not a lot of people, including us, thought that they would be where they are right now, based off the way they started and just based off of the history of the NFL. When you start 0-3, it's very difficult to go on a run like the Texans have gone on a run. But resiliency, I think they've shown that throughout the entire season. C.J. Stroud missing 3 games, Davis Mills having to come in and hold down the fort and keep that win streak going. And then the next word I would say is belief. I think these guys have a great deal of belief in what each of them can do individually and what each one of the guys beside them can do. And belief is the most powerful thing you can have in sport. And so there's a feeling around that locker room. There's a feeling around the building. And I think there's a feeling that's starting to grow in the city that these guys believe. And so they're going into Foxborough with a lot of confidence.
Wait, I know you're a father, so I don't know how often or how frequently you go outside. That's a term from, moving around in the city. But the city has been believing for a while now. And for you personally, I know for me it was a Kansas City win, but when did you believe, what was it where you step back and look at your former team who you represent very well and thought to yourself, oh, no, I don't see nobody else beating us right now. This is a team that can really go all the way for the first time in franchise history?
I don't know if there's one particular moment. I do know that Kansas City win was a big win. I think it's been over the past, let's say, 5 or 6 weeks where the Texans are winning games in multiple types of ways, and they're finishing the game the right way. The defense has been the defense throughout, and the defense is pretty healthy, relatively healthy when you talk about where it's been at different stages throughout the season. But the defense being relatively healthy, the offense continuing to improve in the run game, continually to improve just overall moving the football, getting better in the red zone, getting better on third downs, things that they really struggle with early on in the season. All of those things you just continue to see improvement out of the play calling, Nick Caley. There was games where you could see that there was a lot of meat left on the bone from the offense of the Houston Texans. And so, but they were still getting incrementally better. You see a guy like Christian Kirk just pop out last week and have a great game.
Right.
You saw throughout the season, you missed Nico Collins a couple of games, and the other receivers stepped up. The Hutchinsons and the Higgins and the Noels stepped up. And so when you see that coupled with the fact that you look at the teams that are the number 1 and the number 2 seeds and the teams that are supposed to be better than the Texans on paper based off of their standings, I had no fear of those teams. I still have no fear of those teams. Those teams do not impress me like some teams that are the number 1, number 2 seeds in the past have impressed me. Think about this playoff standings. You had Denver Broncos is the number 1 overall seed. I was at the
A lot of people don't believe in them.
I don't believe in them.
No.
The number 2 seed is the New England Patriots. We'll see them on Sunday.
A lot of inexperience.
A lot of inexperience, and I've seen them play games against bad teams and dominate. And I see them play games against good teams and lose. They lost more than they won against good football teams. So, and then I look at who they have and who they don't have, and it doesn't look like a team that I'm have concerns with, or as a fan that has no control over what's going on, that you are afraid of. And then you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars as a 3 seed. I didn't believe they were going to win last week, and they didn't. They lost in the first round. They looked like a team that, did well in the regular season, but they just didn't seem like the team that was going to be able to win in the playoffs. And then the number 4 seed is Pittsburgh Steelers. They backdoored their way into the playoffs. The best team in the AFC going into the playoffs to me was Houston Texans. That's just objectively looking at, and I have a different perspective because I watch them week in and week out, and a lot of people in the national fandom or media or whatever you might call it, people that are outside looking in, they don't see like, dang, there's so many plays that are left on the field by this offense, and dang, this defense is just, they keep getting better and better. Like earlier in the year, maybe they were missing a tackle in space. They don't be missing tackles no more. Everybody is swarming. Everybody's making plays. There's various guys coming off the bench getting pressure up in the front 7. And so I just think about, okay, it's all about matchups and who you got to play against. And so there's been a great deal of confidence from my end just watching this team finish off this season, and then seeing the people that they were going to have to play, and having confidence in D'Amico Ryans as a head coach and those coaches over on the staff. Have a great deal of confidence watching this game on Sunday.
I should have asked you to put your jersey back on for this, to put that 74 back on for this show, because I wanted to ask about the nuances of the trenches for Houston and how they've improved this year and the impact that offensive line can have on Sunday versus New England Patriots. They take on Christian Barmore. They're going to take on Milton Williams. Those two have been phenomenal. But we also saw when this team was able to run last week, and they were able to do whatever they wanted to outside of the turnovers against Pittsburgh, they're going to have to follow up on that. So from an offensive line perspective, which is really what I want to talk to you today, what are some things that maybe you saw them improve on throughout the year that will work on Sunday, or things that they may need to clean up on to make sure that they continue dominating on the ground?
I tell you what, they had some injuries a few weeks back where Ursery was out, Trent Brown was out, and you had Blake Fisher playing a little left tackle. You had Patterson had to come in and play left guard, move Titus to right tackle. There's a lot of musical chairs going on towards the end of the season. And there was a bunch of musical chairs going on at the beginning of the season because they had guys playing that aren't playing now. Some are not on the team and some are inactives. You had Lincoln Tomlinson and Juice Scruggs splitting time at guard, and those guys are not in the lineup anymore.
Which was ridiculous, by the way.
That's a whole nother thing. But Trent Brown coming in and playing right tackle and being able to stay healthy, miss a couple games, but come back, and the way he played last week, he played a damn good football game. And I think that's helped stabilize the offensive line. And Titus Howard at left guard and Ursery coming back at left tackle. Eddie Ingram's had a breakout year. Andrews has played well. I just think overall as a group, they're playing good football. And you got the tight ends and the receivers that are blocking as well to help with the run game. It's a big deal that those guys have made CJ feel more comfortable than he's felt in a year or so. Because remember last year, he was seeing ghosts. Last year and at the beginning of the season, he was getting beat up. And so when you getting beat up like that, you start looking down at the rush as opposed to looking at your receivers and the DBs looking downfield. And so that can affect the quarterback. And it was affecting CJ. And I think, he got into a rhythm before he got hurt. And then once he got hurt, it took him a little bit to get back into rhythm because he was so used to not being able to have time. Like he's been having time. He's been having opportunity to find guys downfield, and he's an accurate quarterback. So you give him time, he's going to be able to work. So that offensive line, it just continues to reinforce that, hey, CJ, you got time. You can play under control. You can let the routes develop. You can find guys open late. And that's how they've been playing. And the run game, those guys doing a good job with double teaming at the point of attack, getting to the second level, staying on blocks. Like all of those type of things leads to, Woody Marks not getting touched for 4 yards before his first contact, or same thing with Nick Chubb. And you saw that last week against Pittsburgh. They're going to have another performance like that again this week. And I feel like they can. There's no reason why I would think that they're not going to be able to. The defensive line for the Pittsburgh Steelers was a damn good front. Definitely more names than what you would if you compared them to the Patriots, but similar in ability, I would say, especially on the interior. So I just think that the offensive line always is going to be a determining factor with winning or losing if you minimize turnovers. And that's the thing about it. Like you can play well on the offensive and defensive lines, but if you lose a turnover battle, it can nullify that. Well, that's why that game was close early on last week against Pittsburgh, because the offensive line was playing well, the defensive line was playing well, but the turnovers were keeping the Pittsburgh Steelers in the game. Once the turnovers went away, the offensive line was able to start taking over, and the defensive line was able to start taking over, and you saw the result in the final score. I feel like that it's going to take a damn good performance out of the offensive line for the Texans, but I feel like they can do it.
Kind of funny. You lead us into our next conversation when we return. Run game for Houston possibly being the X factor in this game. Turnovers for Houston possibly being a concern in this game. So we'll talk about that when we return back. We got more Wade Smith on today's weekend edition, Locked On Texans. The divisional round is here and playoffs are popping. FanDuel is officially in playoff mode every game day during the NFL playoffs. FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action, because right now every NFL playoff day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boost you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching. Make your picks, apply your profit boost to get after an even bigger payout while the playoffs are still rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL game day. Welcome back, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. Like I said, we got former Houston Texans offensive lineman Wade Smith. We do the squad show every post game, and it's been fun. I think it's been extremely fun the last 10 games. The Texans ain't won. It's been, for the most part, positive. We know that our guy, Stan the Man Norfleet, he's gonna nitpick, but it's been fun to see this team thrive the way that they've thrived, especially for a coach, D'Amico Ryans, who I have a lot of respect for as a coach and what he's done with this franchise. Now, X factors for Houston. Won't be no Nico Collins, right? When Nico Collins went down, the blessing in somewhat of a disguise, the continual emergence of Christian Kirk. He had 86 yards post Nico Collins. What are some of your X factors for this game that the Houston Texans and players or side of the ball or maybe a unit needs to have fun with?
I would say X factor is the Iowa State trio, the Iowa State wide receivers.
All three of them.
all three of them, because this is the thing. This is a good thing that I think, I'm gonna be honest with you. I think some of this plays into decision making of why certain guys get drafted in certain places. But winning on the road in the playoffs, usually it's going to be cold. Usually it's going to be bad weather. You get three guys that played their college ball in Ames, Iowa. This weather situation ain't going to be a big deal to them. C.J. Stroud played Ohio State. This weather situation is not going to be a big deal to them. This is something that they played in and played and had success
Minnesota
in
for Ariante Ursery.
Right. It's a lot of the guy. I think, like I said, when you think of it it's not a determining factor, but it can balance the scales. Like, maybe let me get this guy here because he's been in all the elements and he can perform at a high level. I'm sure that there's certain people that say, like, man, Lamar Jackson should have got drafted to Atlanta or the Miami Dolphins or something like that, because he's that good, and if you put him somewhere where he's in the cold, in the warm weather environment, you can have a great season. You ain't got to go play in the cold, because if you have home field advantage, then you ain't got to travel. Like if Lamar Jackson, to me, if he plays in somewhere, south of the Mason-Dixon line, he probably has gone to a Super Bowl by now, because usually he has his troubles in the cold weather. So that aside, I would say that the X factor would be Iowa State receivers, that trio: Hutchinson, Noel, and Higgins. That would be my offensive X factor. And then a defense. Go ahead.
I can ask you, of the three, Jalen Noel was the first pick for Houston. Xavier Hutchinson has carved his way out on this roster. In Higgins' first pick, Xavier Hutchinson has been able to carve his way out for the roster spot. Noel has been in and out, but he's had moments this year. In the absence of Nico Collins, is there one of the three that you need to see step up fully?
I think the guy that's going to get the most opportunities is going to be Higgins, for sure. I think Higgins is going to get more targets than anybody else. But Hutchinson, I remember when Nico went out the first time, I think Hutchinson had a really big game. So between those two, I would say between those two, they're going to be the ones that are going to get the most targets. I think Noel will get opportunities, like he had an opportunity last game. Didn't come up with the catch. That was a big opportunity. He could have had a big explosive play, but the ball got knocked loose. I think he's going to get his opportunity again this week. But I would just say that I think the easy pick is Higgins to come out and have a big game. And a big game is, hey, get you 4 or 5 catches and 85 yards. Get you a couple of explosive plays, something like that, to where you turn the field, you flip the field, you have some explosive plays. Because I think the play action is going to be there. I think they're going to run the ball. Watching the game last week, the Patriots against the Chargers, there was guys running open, and Herbert just, I'm gonna be honest with you, he just didn't play well. There was guys running open, especially in play action. You could watch in the game, you could see the Patriots, when they feel like it's run, they're going to play the run. The linebackers are going to come downhill. The defensive line is going to hunker down. That means you're going to have time to throw the ball down the field and have time for the routes to develop. And Herbert missed guys. He didn't see guys. He kind of panicked in a pocket a little bit. And so there are going to be opportunities there for the Texans offense to make some big plays.
What about your concerns? Or was it another, like a defensive X factor? Because I'm glad you mentioned, what Herbert did allow for the Patriots to stay in that game, but this is one of the better offenses by the numbers for the 2025 regular season. They didn't have a great offensive explosion in that first game. Obviously, both quarterbacks for both teams want to play better. Drake May included, 2 fumbles, 1 interception. But from a defensive standpoint, is there a player or unit? And let's make it a little bit harder, because we can always say that edge defenders, they need to play to a different level to make sure that they contain this offense.
I would say Aziz and Harrington, and also rolled into that speed, and that's making sure that whoever's spying Drake May makes open field tackles and makes the play so that he doesn't turn 3rd and 9 into first downs, into 15-yard runs. To me, that's the biggest thing on the defense. I think everything else, I really feel like the Patriots receivers they're going to struggle getting open against the Texans DBs. I really feel like their offensive line is going to struggle in obvious passing situations to hold up against the Texans D-line, but I do think that Drake May can be he can be dangerous with his legs. He'll pull the ball down and he can make moves and he can make people move and make people miss in space, and he has speed to him. So it's going to be a lot of times you're going to have a one-on-one situation in open field, kind of similar to Bo Nix early in this year against the Broncos. They were able to win that game because of the lack of open field tackling by the Texans when they drove to kick the field goal to win that game. The Texans are going to get opportunities, and that's the cool thing about what I've seen out of this team is from that date of that Broncos game, the tackling and the open field tackling and the swarm tackling of his defense is considerably improved throughout the year. Guys are making open field tackles. Guys like Kalen Bullock was not a great tackler his first year. He's gotten so much better tackling since he first got here to what he is now. Jalen Petrie was always a hard hitter, but he wasn't a sure tackler when he first got here. He's still that hard hitter, headhunter, but he's become a sure tackler in space. And you've seen it over and over again. And so I think, the linebackers are going to have opportunities to make plays against Drake May, because if they can keep Drake May in the pocket and not allow him to scramble, he's going to have a difficult time making the throws to receivers downfield and finding openings without getting pass breakups, without getting interceptions, without giving up sacks, because it's going to take time for those guys to get open. And I just don't feel like the Patriots offensive line is going to be able to hold up.
Lastly, before we close out, any concerns that you may have? Again, as I mentioned, no Nico Collins, and I think that's something we shouldn't gloss over, but Houston has been able to perform well without Nico in the past. It's supposed to snow on Sunday. Like, is there anything from your perspective where it may make you a little cautious or nervous? And maybe those words are not the words that need to be used, but just a concern altogether that can hurt Houston in their chances.
I mean, there's always going to be concerns with the crowd noise. You're going to have some concerns. Like, I would have more concerns if it was 10, 15 years ago, because that field used to be atrocious. But now that it got that field turf there with the weather elements, with the snow, their field is not trash like it used to be, where that could slow down on offense, where you could have bad footing. It's a concern, but I don't think it's as much of a concern as it used to be back in the day. But when you look at Vrabel as a head coach and how smart he is, I think you have to be concerned with them coming up with some plays, whether it's special teams, whether it is some trick play on offense, whether it is some blitz that they dial up that the Texans haven't seen that can get home. That cerebral part of the game, that just figuring out situational football, being such a high level at that, I think that's something to be concerned about. But I think for the most part, I think the Texans just be who they are and be who they've been all year, which is a team that plays damn good defense, that finishes the game running the ball well, that protects the football. That's the formula to go out there and get a W.
Nico Ryans always says, whenever we go out and execute, they win games, and they've been able to execute as of late. Wade, I want to thank you for stopping by. I know I'll see you on Sunday for the postcast. Texans go to the AFC Championship game for the first time in franchise history, man. What would that mean? Give me 5 words on how you feel before we close.
You really can't articulate that, man. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think that's the statement
really
right there.
Can't articulate that. That's fine.
You really can't.
You really okay?
That. Without even trying to do it, I did it. But that's for real. You can't really articulate that. I tell you what, Sunday is gonna be a beautiful day. Just be prepared for it. Like I said, I said it on the post game shows. We're gonna be doing these post game shows for a few more weeks. This is just the second one. But this team is special. This team, it's just a different feel. And I've been feeling it for a while now. It's been, I don't know, about 7-8 weeks where I'm like, man, this year seems different. Everything is lining up and things just keep happening. You talk about it, the Texans in the outfield, like certain things are happening where you say, man, they're doing things the right way, and they have the right people in place. And there's nobody that I look at across the way where I say, even if you do everything right, they can still beat you. There's no teams like that in the league right now. There used to be teams like that and guys like that where you say, man, we did everything right, and it didn't matter because that person was Superman. That person over there was just better than everybody else. They don't got that. So why not us? Why not the Texans? And so give me the Texans. Give me the Texans 23-10.
Okay, that's bold right there. 23-10 from Wade Smith. I can't wait to see you Sunday, man. I think it's going to be fun. I think we're going to look at what the Houston Texans did in that game, and we're going to be proud as a city, as people who with them, a player as well. Just overall, a team with the opportunity to reach their first AFC championship game, something that they've never done, and this would turn the city. I'm going to be outside for that one. I'm going to tell you that right now. Until next time, ladies and gents, Texas fans across the nation, I appreciate you for this weekend episode. Peace. We'll see y'all today.